Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Alliance event. So this one will be Pian and myself, and we are going to talk about a few things today. So we're going to talk about the first thing is, other events like this. So the QR code goes to the event calendar. So it's a good thing to look to that and to think about events that might be helpful to you. We run a lot of events in Discord. We run this event here in YouTube every quarter. And so check out the calendar. It's very helpful. Tomorrow, for instance, there is a global customer call. And so look at your mailbox and see if you got an invitation to that. And if you didn't, you could email customer.success@filewave.com and just let us know, and we'll make sure that you get that. You definitely want to be on the call tomorrow if you want to just learn about more of our corporate roadmap. Today's call is purely just about 16.3 and the changes in it, the things to consider. Okay, so after 16.3, I should say, we're going to have I put support with Derek. It's basically support items, things that he's seeing from customers. So let's see. Let's get started with 16.3.1. So 16.3.1 right now is in early access. So there are some customers that have it, and we're very thankful for their feedback. We did find in 16.3.0 that there were a few things that came up and have been addressed. There will be, even if you are in early access and you're running 16.3.0, you may wonder, how do I get 16.3.1? It's not published just yet, but we're working on getting that completed. And basically the timeline for the release will be that we hope to close out all the found issues, and I hope get it through QA, during this week, right, Pian? I mean, that would be our hope, that this week we would be able to say it's done.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, it's already being going through QA, and they found a small issue, so we'll have to fix it, and then it will be there by the end of the week, hopefully, if nothing big happens.
So,
by the way, talking about being a bit late, could you maybe explain the folks there why we are so long after 16.2, which was what, October last year?
Yeah, it was October, which I found as I was making this video. So we had made a change, and this will be an important change. Probably the most important part of this video is if you manage iOS or iPadOS devices, you've used our kiosk probably to advertise applications or things to users, right? So they can self-install, so a teacher can install things, for instance, or in a corporation that the finance person can install some finance apps without having to ask you. That's always been an enterprise app. It's been an IPA file, and now it's a VPP app. And whenever you put something in the App Store, Apple has an approval process, and that approval process for us was something that didn't exist when it was an IPA. So we had to work through that in getting approved. And I was going to say it's the first time we've done it, but I guess years ago we tried in the past, but this time we were successful. We did it because Apple said that MDM providers should be doing it this way. So, if you've ever used another MDM, you might have already dealt with this, that their kiosk app was a VPP app. But most definitely, I think every MDM and UEM provider that has a kiosk is likely moving to it being a VPP application. And it just took us time. So,
and it will also bring a few things like there are some frameworks which are only available for apps which are in the store. So it will bring new features later. But yeah, that's a positive change. But it
Yeah.
comes with a few things that you will have to do.
Yes. And maybe actually we could talk about that now because I don't really have like a slide specifically about it, but um, it's in the release notes. So if I was to, I know where I can get to it quickly. So when I go here to iOS downloads, before it would say we automatically install, but now this section of the release notes links to the article that talks about the process. So there are articles for 16.3 already that you could get to, if you wanted to today. And in fact, I'll copy this and I will paste it into the YouTube chat so that people have it. Hopefully that makes it there. And so the things you have to do that are covered in this article, you have to buy VPP licenses for the FileWave kiosk. And if I open this in a new tab, you'll see that we are in the App Store. When you buy licenses, and ideally, you would buy them even before you get to 16.3, just so that they're synced in and everything's good. If you buy it when you're on 16.2 or lower, you're going to probably see a file set get created for the kiosk. We mentioned this in the article, but that file set that's created in 16.3, you can delete it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to associate it with devices. Everything is just kind of magically done in the background. But the problem is that before 16.3, the file set just gets created because every VPP file set potentially would get created. So just know that that file set doesn't really matter as a file set. And if you accidentally associate it to something, and you're on 16.3 now and you worry that you've got this file set in this association or deployment, you can delete it just fine and it will still be on the devices. So don't worry about that at all. And this article will step you through it. And I think that's the key thing. And we do give an example of, you should probably buy a few more licenses than you have devices because over time, maybe you have 100 devices today, you only buy 100 licenses, they're free, but you still have to technically buy them. If you have 110 devices later, then 10 devices might not get the kiosk. So you can certainly, purchase a little bit larger. You don't want to do what people sometimes do when they start using VPP and just buy 1,000,000 licenses, because that doesn't work out well. Just give yourself a bit of a buffer over what you have. Anything more on that, PN, or that I missed?
There was just a question in the chat about having the macOS kiosk as a VPP app. For now, we don't plan to do it. There are some restrictions because the kiosk is talking to FileWave client, the agent, and usually kiosk apps, the VPP apps are sometimes sandboxed. So for now, we are not looking at it, but yeah, that's if it's possible at some point, we will have a look. Now, the thing is that we have the same code base for Windows and Mac, so it makes it easier to have it outside the kiosk right now. But yeah, it's not a complete no, but for now, it's not planned.
Okay.
Back
So
to you.
let's go back up here to the top and maybe I think we're good on that topic for now, at least. But maybe we could just walk through the release notes and hit on the important things that have changed. Let's deny that. Hey, I can move that off my screen. Okay, so let's walk through this. So for instance, the first thing that jumps out is really if you're just on premise. If you're on premise, then the appliance version matters. You're either on Mac OS, running it on Mac OS. Nothing really changes about this, but if you're running on premise with the Debian appliances, then this will matter quite a bit. Right now, you still run a one-liner, kind of the same one-liner. Sorry about that pop-up once more. But yeah, you run a one-liner and it will take it from Debian 12 to Debian 13. And there's nothing really to do except to know that it's a pretty big upgrade. It takes time. And just be patient with it. We've put in some extra safety mechanisms so that, if you get disconnected in the middle, you can reconnect. If you feel like something went wrong in the upgrade process, like while it's running, you could leave it running and maybe open a support case and ask, but chances are it will work successfully. And you just have to be patient. So do it at a time that you have the time, that you're not in a rush. I don't think there's really anything on that topic besides that. I did have one customer that had an interesting thing where they wanted to get to Debian 13 ahead of doing the FileWave upgrade, and that technically works for server and booster. But for most people, I think you'll just run the one-liner and be good, and it'll do the Debian upgrade and the FileWave upgrade at the same time. Okay, so for booster installs, of course, upgrades are applying on my machine and showing up on the screen. But for FileWave appliances, it's easy. For booster installs, we have a bit of help where it kind of does the upgrade automatically. So what you'll see is when you upgrade FileWave Server, I will bring up my console. So what you'll see when you upgrade server is that your boosters, they're not initially upgraded when you get to 16.3. But you'll notice in preferences that there's this automatically upgrade boosters, and it's defaulting to 7 days. And so with it set at 7 days, then where normally you might forget to upgrade your boosters, they will upgrade after 7 days. What happens is that you'll see that there's a scheduled upgrade when you look at your list of boosters. 7 days later, they'll do their thing. If you want this to be less, and I think my preference would be that it would happen pretty immediately when the server upgrades, but not everybody wants it to be that way. So let's say you want to change it. It doesn't spell it out here, but in the knowledge base article, it does. If you set it to 0 days, that is kind of an immediate upgrade. But the thing is, let's say I change it to 0. I'm on 16.3. I change it to 0 and I hit OK. My boosters will not suddenly upgrade. That number that you set is valid for the next time you apply a server upgrade. So when 16.3.1 comes out, that value of 0 would be in effect. But we already missed changing the number for 16.3 because you couldn't set it till you were on 16.3. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. So if you do want to upgrade your boosters right away, you can go to the boosters tab and you could cancel the schedule upgrade by selecting them and right-clicking and picking to cancel the scheduled upgrade, and then you could schedule the upgrade and do it right away if you wanted.
And the booster upgrade is still try to be smart in the sense that if anything goes wrong during the upgrade process will stop. So we will not start upgrading one booster, fail, go to the next booster and fail, and then you end up with no booster running at all. So it's exactly the same as what you do today when you select all boosters and you schedule them for upgrade. We do that one by one, and if everything goes well with the first one, we address the second one, and so on until everything is ready.
Yeah. So, and if anyone wonders why we did this, we found there's a lot of customers that we've worked with where they were experiencing problems and the server might be on the latest version, but the boosters were not. And the boosters and server change from version to version. And sometimes it's as easy as upgrading the boosters and the problem's resolved. So keeping them in sync is a good idea. The reason we didn't do immediate upgrade from the start was that we were, it was maybe an initial worry that somebody might not expect that or want that. And then, so in this first round, it's at least 7 days, which is better than it never happening. And then if you want to change it and make it 0 days, then you can do that. Okay, so let's see.
And we already talked about it for 16.2, but yet we really started an initiative to make FileWave upgrade simpler. As Josh just said, we've seen installations where boosters were not up to date. Even upgrading the server, we got this feedback for several versions that it's painful because you have to upgrade the server, then you have to upgrade the admin, then you have to upgrade the clients, and it's mostly manual steps except for the boosters. So we started this initiative to make this much simpler than before. There are some changes today for 16.3. There will be more changes for 16.4. So let's focus on 16.3 and what else is better for 16.3.
Yeah. So more simplification coming, and that's kind of been the theme for the last few releases. Let's see. Then notifications. There are. Remember, we have these notifications that can happen, and there's all sorts of things like if the upgrade for a booster fails, you can see an upgrade there. If it's successful, you can see it there. I have various notifications here for different tests that I was doing, but yeah, so you'll have more information and more simplification. Let's see. And then we didn't put in automatic upgrades for servers yet. That would be kind of a big deal when we're able to maybe do that, but we're at least putting in notifications to tell you that you're on an outdated version. And then for 16.4, like we were saying, there'll be even more.
Yeah, the client one is probably a big one. We can go quickly over it, but yeah, you will not see the change right now because it requires 16. It will require 16.4, but we are putting in place in 16.3 all the background processes which will allow a much more reliable upgrade process for the client, which means goodbye to upgrade file sets. Goodbye to monitoring that. It will go in software update in a separated tab like you have for Windows or Apple updates, and you will be able to upgrade your clients from there. Same pattern as for boosters where we do it by batch to not break if anything goes wrong. And we have a separated process which will make sure that if anything goes bad with the upgrade, we revert to the previous installation. So the goal here is that to make sure that FileWave, you should never go to a device to reinstall FileWave client. It should always be there and connected to the server.
Yeah, and something maybe somebody would notice is that there's like an upgrade helper. I think that on Mac and Windows, right? That would be in place now. So somebody might notice an additional process. But yeah, this should be all good stuff. So then, other simplifications and clarifications, people may be happy about. I'm very happy about this. But instead of having to always say queries in Central and reports in anywhere, we just switch to just reports. So one name everywhere for it. And so you can just call it the one thing. And so over time, we'll clean up the knowledge base to really use the word reports everywhere instead of saying queries and then putting reports in parentheses. So not much different with the rename, except if you're brand new or you set up a new FileWave server, you'll notice that the sample reports are not there anymore. And instead, there's a content pack for example reports. And you can pick the platforms that are relevant, and it'll add those sample reports. You can even technically add them on your existing server now if you want some examples of OS reporting, and we might add some more samples later. But yeah, this is the move to just simplify. So when you set up a new FileWave server, you'll see that reports is called reports, and it's blank, and it says there's a link that you can click or a button that you can click to get to content packs to install the example reports. We make it very simple, and that way we don't have samples for Android, for instance. If you don't manage Android, there's no point. So more simplification.
Actually, the reports, the content pack will only be available starting with 16.3. We have versions on the content pack. But yeah, and it makes it a little bit nicer so you don't have Android 8 or Android 6 default sample when we are in 2026. So it's much better today.
Yeah. And we could put more samples in, to make it easier to have examples right there. So if when you're on 16.3, you add those sample reports and you wish there was some example in there, you could let us know. You can always email, for instance, kb@filewave.com, or reach out to professional services, or if you don't know that, then reach out to just customer.success@filewave.com and they'll route it. Or I know sometimes people are talking to support, and just when you're speaking with support, just ask, hey, how do I mention that this would be a helpful report? And somebody in support will tell you, or will get it to me. So what was this reinstall file set, PN?
So we are still working on making FileWave a bit better every release, and FileWave is an old software. It started 34 years ago, and we had until 16.1 a very odd behavior because we had file set report for desktop devices, desktop file set, sorry, and another file set report for mobile file sets. It's legacy history when, for customers who have been with us for a long time ago, they may remember that we had one server for desktop and one server for everything MDM. So we made that consistent, one unique file set report in 16.1. But then we realized that there were some issues with the reinstall file set feature, which was not working for all file set types, or it was not working the same way than before. So we took some time to make it much better. So in 16.2, we started to fix it, and 16.3, we took all file set types, and they now all work the same way, all platforms, all file set types. So could be a feature or just a good bug fix.
And there was a question going back to sample reports. So sample reports getting removed. So if you have sample reports and you go to 16.3, they will remain in your, you'll still see them in Central and anywhere. You won't see the button to refresh them anymore, but you can go into content packs and you can add the sample reports instead of queries, and they won't step on the old samples. And you can always go in to content packs and you can reapply the content pack if there were changes in time. It won't delete ones that might be removed. Like if there was you install the sample reports and then 3 years from now you install it again, it won't remove the ones that that you've got there that are no longer in the samples, but it would install the extra ones. So okay. So is this improved empty states and central tables is just what I talked about, that you'll get this button that lets you, this is actually done in more places than just reports. So here in file sets, it'll say create a new file set. That's kind of the trend. If there's an area that is empty, that there should be a button that kind of, leads you to do the thing to create the first thing. Okay. For this one, the enhanced policy tab in client info. So there was, and I think I have a sample that I can show. So it's this view that it's talking about, which when you look on a prior version, it was a little, I believe it was a little vague about the name, right? The name was blank, I think, before.
It was just the file set ID, and yeah, it's a bit hard to figure out. Yeah, besides, we are adding more and more items to the FileWave policy. For instance, if you want to customize the kiosk, or if there are more and more items there. So yeah, we decided to make it simpler to figure out when you have policies installed on a device, which file sets, and you can go directly to the file set with a right click. So
Yeah. And in particular, if you don't know what that was, so I went and made a new file set and made a policy, a FileWave policy file set, and this is what PM was mentioning, how you can customize the kiosk via this, or you can change Windows Software Update things, and so that is better. So let's see. File set creation and modification dates. So this came out of a support case, I believe, originally, where somebody wasn't sure when a file set had changed, and right, and I believe that now you can tell when it was modified.
Yeah, the information was always available in FileWave itself, but again, some legacy items. It comes from the times where we had two databases, one for FileWave itself and one from inventory. And I'm even not
Mm.
talking about Asset Trusty for people who have been there with us for more than 15 years. But yeah, so the information was in one place, but not made public in inventory. And now that's the case. When you change a revision, the creation or the modification date of the revision will be updated in inventory as well. So if you have reports based on top of that, it will be available there.
Yeah. And then this one could be a big one, hopefully not. So your FileWave server, when somebody tries to log in, you may know this. You can try and try and try, and it will not stop you. This has always been a concern of ours, especially if your FileWave server is out on the internet, and that login is exposed. And so now there is a brute force protection in place, and you can configure it too. So the first thing is when you try to log in, you'll actually get a message, and the brute force protection applies to anywhere and central both. So you'll get locked out. Like your login will get locked out for a period of time. And that amount of time can escalate as you keep trying. Think of like iPhone lockout, how it increases and increases. If you have children, you'll find that suddenly you're locked out for an hour on your phone because your kid was playing with it. But here, if I go to preferences and I scroll down, you're going to see this brute force protection so that you can tweak this. You could turn it off. I would not suggest turning it off, but you can turn it off if you didn't want it. You can also change the amount of failed attempts before it locks you out and how exactly it increases that timer. But this is a very good way to block dictionary attacks on a FileWave server so that you could feel more comfortable with your FileWave server being able to have logins from the internet. Okay. So this was the first thing we talked about was the kiosk app. So just super important to understand that if you're managing iPads and iPhones. So anything on here, PM?
Not necessarily. I mean, one of the goal of FileWave is to deploy file sets and to give you as much information as we can about what happened. So yeah, we with Apple increasing the usage of DDM, we started to make file set reports compliant with the changes. So this one is if you have a DDM based file set which has multiple configurations like the screen sharing, before it was hard to figure out if everything was okay, and now it's super clear. You just click on the file set and you see the detail for each configuration, if everything is okay or not. So small
And one
changes, but yeah.
one thing somebody might get confused by when they see screen sharing, that's the screen sharing built into macOS, right? That's not anything to do with our team viewer screen
Yeah,
sharing that someone might
correct.
think.
It's the DDM configuration Apple brought to configure the new application they use to
Yeah.
configure screen sharing.
Okay. And then the icons, that's
Yeah,
obviously
the
nice.
most important change we've made for 16.3, obviously. And I know that it will not look super nice for everybody, but yeah, we are just following the guidelines.
And then for these, we don't have to talk about each one of these, but, we always list out, Apple adds new things that the profile editor should be able to manage, and we add those things. So if you manage Apple things, you may want to look at here and see in the release notes and see if something applies to you. But the DDM changes. So the important thing is this blue, right? So this section, when you read it, it doesn't apply to you unless you have it enabled, right? And it's not enabled by default.
Yeah, and anyway, the impact is for now very small because again, legacy. We have more control today when we install a PKG via FileWave Client Agent, so WCLD, which means that for now, Apple let us do it. We manage PKGs from the client. But there is a way from MDM and from DDM to install packages, and that's what we are using to deploy the FileWave agent when you enroll a device using ADE. So for now, the DDM way is, or both MDM and DDM ways are working together. We have both available there. We will test the DDM and we will switch to DDM because at some point Apple will stop supporting the install enterprise application on Mac via MDM. But yeah, so that's why it's technical preview, and we will see when we will switch to default.
And then this one was pretty interesting because now you can pin app versions, right? But is that one also contingent on anything being enabled, like a technical preview, or is that one possible?
Yeah, so for now, it's a little bit the same. So installing applications, VPP applications, it was available in DDM for a super long time, but Apple did not support all the features which were available with MDM. For instance, managed configuration was not available until very recently, which means that if you have, for instance, our kiosk, could not be installed via DDM because we are using the configuration mechanism to be sent when you install the application. So that's why we had the support for apps installation via DDM, but it was not complete. We had a tech preview a couple of versions ago, and we have a few customers who started using this, and we are a bit sorry for them because they realized that the support was not complete on our side and on Apple side. And with 16.3, it looks like everything is there. So we started to get good feedback, but it's still not enabled by default. So we will start looking at how we enable it by default, very likely for 16.4. But at least it's there. And if there is a need to, for instance, have a pinned version or block the update behavior, maybe it's the good time to test upgrading to DDM apps and see if that works. The only problem, and that's on Apple side, there is no easy way to roll back. When you install an app via MDM and then via DDM, DDM can take over. But as MDM is more ancient than DDM, the way around is not possible. And that's the kind of problematic. If there is something wrong, it's not easy to go back without uninstalling apps.
And there was a question in the chat, if you're using install applications to manage FileWave client install, don't enable the tech preview for DDM. So more of like a caution.
Yeah, there is. We know that some customers are hacking a little bit our system, and instead of installing FileWave client directly via ADE, they are using things like DP notifier or other things where they package more than FileWave client. For now, with DDM, we haven't tested if that works to use the same hack. That's one of my tickets for 16.4 to make sure that it works. So for now, don't switch to DDM apps for macOS. We have a different flag for iOS and macOS. So if you want to test just iOS, just reach out and we can set this up.
Yeah. And then, so profiles also are part of that tech preview, I guess. Profiles through DDM?
Same. Profiles were the very first thing Apple introduced with DDM as a legacy support. And we discussed with them and I said, yeah, sorry, the very first implementation, we had a lot of issues, feedback from MDM vendors and MDM vendor customers made it much better. And it's the first MDM features which may be deprecated on Apple side. So that's why we are still testing, installing profiles via DDM, and we are improving the support. So here the DMDM command policy, which is not really a profile. When we read the profile, we convert that into commands. In the past, it was still sent, and then errors will be showing up. Now we are doing it properly. We ignore the MDM commands, or at least the policy itself, when we send it via DDM. So the commands are still sent, but the policy doesn't show up.
Okay. And then just, there's, I suppose for some of these, we don't have to go into detail necessarily about them because we
Um,
could probably run a long time, but this one's probably important.
yeah,
Um, it's about this checkbox, which I won't have a checkbox because I'm on this version. And actually, my server shows what it would look like if notifications would not work, I believe. So in this setting area, there's a checkbox on your before 16.3 server where you can turn on VPP2 notifications. And normally when you check it and you hit OK, it does a little test and then it would allow it to be on, or it would give you an error and say you can't turn it on because it requires Apple to be able to reach the server. So in my case, I believe that mine has it off. I might have something manually set, but it should say on, right? Turned on if it was correct.
yeah, we detect if it works out of the box. We still have the link to the KB article to explain you what it means. You don't have the delay anymore if you have notifications. So maybe just quickly what it does. Today, when you install a VPP app, we need to have a license. So we ask Apple to associate a license to the device or to the VPP users if you are still using VPP users. And we have to wait an amount of time. For device, it could be quick. For users, it could take a few minutes. So that's why we have this 3 minutes delay. Apple introduced a couple of years ago what they call VPP notifications, which is we can set up things where Apple tells us, oh, the license is there. So you can install the app. So we don't have to wait 3 minutes when things are going very fast. But for that, you need to make sure that your server is reachable from Apple. So Apple will contact your server to tell there is a license. And that's what VPP notifications are. Before, you had to turn it on by default, and it would break VPP sync if the notification was not there or not available. Now we just detect if that works, then it works. If that doesn't work, we just tell you, and that's it. So better to have it working. So read the KB article or contact us if you need help to set this up. But now if it's there, we just make use of it automatically.
Yeah. So more simplification and it will work better automatically. I know that this one's worth mentioning because this came up through a support case or two. That when you were, what was it that the profile could come back in when you restore a machine was it from a time machine backup?
Yeah, it has been a long time complication on Apple's side when you restore a device which is enrolled with ADE. Depending if you restore the backup on the same device or the backup on a different device, you may end up with a device which will not re-enroll because it considers that the backup contains the enrollment information and that the device is already enrolled, which means that when you restore the device says, I'm already enrolled, I will not contact my MDM, and then the device is kind of stuck. In 26, I think iOS 26, Apple introduced a new flag for the ADE profile, which allows to configure if you want to use the MDM profile from the backup or not. It was not documented for a long time. It was documented when we started to work on 16.3, so that's why we added it in 16.3.
And then this is just one of those skip keys, that you can skip a section as Apple adds things. And then rapid security response is now called background security improvement. So it's mostly a naming change, right? Is there anything technical that someone has to worry about with this?
Internal changes. I mean, for us, there were some changes, but for you, it's just renamed.
Okay. And then I know on the Android side, there was really just some work to be compliant with rate limiting things on the Google side. So I would just say there's nothing for you to do if you manage Google devices. Just know that it should be better. It's another improvement thing without needing to do anything. We talked about this because it's mentioned in the earlier section where I showed that that policy for the software update for the profile. So that is just a repeat of that. If you image Windows devices, We're still in the practice of bumping these things up for the Linux kernel and build root. So the hope is, and I think it's held pretty well, that if we keep moving the Linux kernel forward, then a new machine, would hopefully be covered, before you buy it. So we just keep moving these things forward so that it would have compatibility with newer hardware.
Kernel version 7 is out the door, so we'll have to
Yeah.
see if that works. And yeah, you will not be able to image Intel 486 because they dropped the support, but yeah.
So this one would probably come up. I mean, it shouldn't come up, right? Because the server should update the TCC profile, but it could come up if you have like an anti-malware thing, like maybe CrowdStrike might do this, or some other solution that might look at signatures. And if you whitelist or blacklist things based on signatures, our code signing changed, right? So it could be something to think about depending on what kind of tools you have policing your machines.
Yeah, the only thing you will have to check with FileWave itself is that, as Josh mentioned, we are delivering a TCC profile. So the thing Apple introduced to grant more permissions to some processes. So if you want FileWave client to be able to update apps in / applications, FileWave client needs to be allowed to do that. And the TCC profile is doing it. And inside the TCC profile, you need to give the signing information. As we had to change the signing, we already in 16.2. I think starting with 2.2, we already started to deploy a new TCC profile which contains both signing identities, so the old FileWave client and the new FileWave client signature would be valid. But there is still one case where it's a little bit tricky, is that the TCC profile must be deployed before FileWave client starts. So most of the time it's okay because you have the TCC profile installed. Then we have FileWave client installed or upgraded. But if it happens in the way around and you never restarted your Mac, you may end up with a FileWave client which says, sorry, I cannot update this / application / something apps. So after some time, there will be no problem because all Macs will reboot at least once after the TCC profile has been installed. But during the upgrade, it may happen.
Yeah, so you might see machines that appear not to upgrade, right? And the resolution would be the reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've encountered that before. There was a change maybe 2 years ago where similar, where it didn't
Yeah,
have the profile ahead, so we couldn't restart the client.
yeah, it happens each time Apple adds more restrictions, which are bypassed by the TCC profile. The problem is that if the current TCC profile does not have the new restrictions bypassed, then the new client cannot do it. So we have a kind of chicken egg problem.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is just more standardization, right? That we're using Supervisor D on server on Mac OS.
It's just to have the same thing on all the platforms we support, so it's less maintenance and less problems.
Yeah. And then there was a few things in the release notes about the database, and I know that we ship multiple copies of Postgres in our FileWave versions, but sometimes that can affect like getting from version, let's say 14 straight to version 16.3. There can be a requirement to get to specific versions in between. And at the top of this release page, it mentions like what those versions that you have to jump through are, but it's because we can't include every version of Postgres in every version of FileWave, right? It would get pretty large. So if you're on 16, what was it? Maybe I should just show it so that people could see it. We have a note that is on the server section. So you can see that we try and spell out what versions you jump through. So if your server is not super old, then you should be on one of these 16.0 versions would be the hope, right? And then obviously it has Postgres 17. The new one has 17 and 18, so you're good. But if you were on something before 16.0, and I probably should have listed 15 versions here, but if you were on something before that, you have to get to something that has this common 12 and 17 before you get to 16.3. So just something to think about if you're on an old version. And complications like this or complexities like this are reasons that we really want to make it easy to upgrade so that you tend to be on the latest version, without having to jump through hoops to get to the latest version. So let's go down to, and because of database upgrades, the upgrade process can be longer if it has to do some kind of database checking and upgrading. So just like I mentioned with the Debian 13 upgrade, the database upgrade too, just give yourself time and don't assume that things are stuck. If you think things are stuck, certainly open up a support case, but don't interrupt it. Just let it keep going, because the worst is if you interrupt it, because then almost certainly you have to go to a backup. And then obviously on the backup topic, please back up your FileWave server, because inevitably something could happen to your server itself. You could have a disk failure, for instance. So there's that. I'll talk about this in a minute. There was nothing on the deprecation list for this. There was, so for IVS, it used to be that you could do apt get, apt update, apt upgrade. Back on CentOS days, it was yum update, yum upgrade. We've moved to just using the one-liner script that is on the download page. It's much easier to handle the fact that customers can be on various versions of the IVS, and they don't necessarily all run the latest because your server might not be the latest. And ultimately, eventually in our simplification, even the one-liner scripts would go away, and ultimately we'd have some kind of integrated thing that you would handle upgrades in. So just look for us to keep simplifying that. And then model update v1. In theory, everybody's on model update v2. That's when you click to do a model update model. That was improved some time ago now, and the code for v1 is just getting ripped out, I guess. And then there's a long list of fixes. If you have a support case open and you've ever been told FWRD 17554 is your issue, you'll be able to find it here. A lot of times support will follow up with somebody to say hey, this is going to be in the next version. So you probably know, but you can always look at the list. And if you're not quite sure, you can always ask. If you think that something might apply to you and you're just not 100% sure, open up a support case and just ask for more details on that issue. And maybe it did apply to you. Okay. So those are kind of the things. PN, do you think, actually, I know something that's not in the release notes that we had in our list that we don't have a slide about, but if you have Mac devices and you use AutoPKG, you'll be happy to see that the description is a lot more populated. You'll be happy to see that there are a lot more items in here. It came out of a support request. And so we did a bit of work to update this. There's also the back-end system that builds the AutoPKG stuff, got an upgrade. So it is capable of building the latest recipes as well.
And we should not say it, but it's already available with 16.2. You don't need 16.3 for that. But you need to upgrade to 16.3.
Yeah. So there's that. And was there anything else you think I missed?
No, I think we're good. And we already spent a good amount of time. So if we want Derek to talk a little bit, then we probably need to hurry up.
Yeah. So I can jump to, hello, Derek.
Hello, everybody. Actually, mine's going to be pretty quick because I don't, Josh mentioned that I was going to share issues. The nice part is, nice and bad part, the last release was back in October, so we've had tons of time with 16.2. For those of you that don't know, we're up to 16.2.5, contains all and any of the fixes from when we originally released 16.2.0. So if you're having any issues, I would upgrade to that first. But more, I just wanted to hop on here just to say, with this release, if you guys have any questions, like they mentioned, feel free to reach out to support. Obviously, if you run into any issues with it, reach out to support. I did also want to mention, as people are starting to plan for larger projects, just go ahead and give some of those workflows a test to make sure they're working as you expect them to. Right. The worst thing that I don't like is when somebody starts on this huge project and then they hit an issue. Right. We want to get all that stuff ironed out before. The one that comes to mind a lot for me, especially as we're hitting these summer months, is people are going to start refreshing a lot of Windows devices. Josh mentioned that the IVS has all the latest stuff, but it never fails. Every year, a customer buys a brand new device and it won't image for some reason, right? Sometimes that is the kernel, or there's a certain driver that's missing, and then there's even been times in the past where somebody had a device that the firmware needed to be updated first, right? So the earlier you can get your hands on one of those devices that you're going to be buying and test it to see if it's going to work or not, then we can also get involved to see what we can do to help get those imaged so you don't get behind on any timelines. But as always, right, if you're unsure where to go, reach out to support. We'll either get you in contact with the person that you need to talk to, or help in any way that we can. I'll have, if one of the people in the chat could drop those in there again, it's just help.filewave.com, and then help@filewave.com for email. I think that's about it.
Thank you. So then I'm going to talk about product board just for a second, and I will share my screen again. And so, and I'll share the links for this as well on another slide after this. But if you've not seen this site yet, this replaced our product board site, and it's a place where you have to use single sign-on to get in. So it's the same login where you open support tickets or log into the Foundry, and you don't have to be like a support contact in that, we have a primary and secondary support contact most times. If you're a limited support contact and you just have a login to use Foundry, for instance, you can log into this. It's the same single sign-on system. And you can put ideas that you would like to see in the FileWave product, and you can vote on other people's ideas as well. We like this because it's a very simple system, and it allows for discussions. So if I click on this idea, I can see this idea. I can see that there's 2 votes for it. I could reply on here and ask for clarification on something. So it's a really nice system to be able to ask for what you want. And the moment that you post it, it's visible. It's not like before where, you would submit it and it was only public when we reviewed it and then posted it. This is very simple and has a threaded discussion. And then we can put things from here on a roadmap. And if you do use this site, you should consider going to My Settings and turning on any notifications that you want to get. Web notifications are great. I'll see the bell, but if I don't go here so often, you might want to turn on email notifications, perhaps for mentions where somebody wrote @ and then your name replying to you, or if you submitted an idea and you want to know if the status changed, you could get an email on it. And so you can change notifications there. And then we have the roadmap site as well. This roadmap site is driven by the data over on the Innovate site. And right now they're 2 separate sites. It's just because the software that runs the Innovate site doesn't really have a roadmap function. So I built this, but they're working on adding a roadmap. So that could collapse together into a single thing, because that's makes much more sense. So looking over here, for now, this is what's available now. which is 16.3. Technically, I know we're in a funny place where it's not really now, but this is everything that's in 16.3 as far as like critical things. And there was one thing that PN, I guess we didn't mention on our list, was Server
What about this one?
2025 support. So that one's there. That came out of a support request from a customer. And next should be 16.4. So the things that fall in there, which piano question: is Vision Pro going to make it into 16.4?
It will. I have my toys here. I've been able to make it in FileWave, so yes, it should be there. So maybe for 16.4, quick note about 16.4. So the time frame is still to release something before summer vacation. We know it's quite short after 16.3. The main reason is that 16.3 has been delayed due to the kiosk review from Apple. So we had some time to put things in 16.4, and we want to release it, especially the client upgrade. We think that the client upgrade mechanism will make full upgrade much simpler. So we want to have this as soon as possible. But it's not just that. We have lots of cool features there. Still on the upgrade path, you can now upgrade the IVS with one click. Custom package, you don't need to go to custom.filewave.com and generate a new package. Every time we have a new release, it's built in FileWave and it automatically updates. We talked about you need to buy VPP licenses for the kiosk. If you don't do it, or if you don't for your own apps, you don't buy enough licenses, you will get a notification telling you that you have a license shortage. Lots of things which will be very cool, and yeah, we'll disclose them in a Alliance meeting very soon.
Yeah, and then this one over here in later, I should say later means it doesn't mean 16.5 necessarily. I mean, it can be things for 16.5, but it can be for a further out thing. It's kind of a thing where it maybe has a plan about it, but it's not locked into a particular version. And it would really help if, and the reason later looks a bit empty is because we just did the 16.3, so everything kind of shifted over. We didn't fill up the later list yet. But if you see something in later that is important to you, then voting for it, you just go to the item and pick to vote for it, is kind of important because it does help us validate that something is important to customers. So that would...
to build a roadmap, I mean, there is no magic. I mean, we have to look at more or less three important things. One is vendors. Apple will release macOS everything 27 at the end of the year. We have to support them because if we don't, you will not be able to upgrade your devices. By the way, we plan to have basic beta support for macOS 27. We still don't know the name in 16.4, which means that even if we are not releasing 16.5 before macOS is out, it should work. So we'll make sure that there is a patch or a touch release which makes it the basic support. So that's one driver. The second driver is opening new markets. We want FileWave to grow. We want to be everywhere. I mean, we are the platform UEM, so we want to be everywhere. So that's why Linux, and we got feedback that Linux could be useful to be managed by FileWave. And the last one, which is for me one of the most important, is innovatefilewave.org, because that's your feedback. That's where you have problems or requirements or feature requests about FileWave. And yeah, our goal is to make your life easier. So we need to know what you need.
Yeah, and then so if you want to get to those, you can use these QR codes that are here, or it's just go.filewave.com/product-board or go.filewave.com/roadmap, or in Central, I believe that you can go to help and then a roadmap, for instance, and it will open up in a new little window there, and help, submit feedback. We'll go here. And
we don't see your screen anymore, but yes, it's in the help menu.
I'm saying it, but yes, it is in help. That's the problem with two screens on my side.
We have the link to knowledge base, support, forum, Foundry, Discord. Discord is also a good place to exchange with us.
Yeah. So last couple of things, and we will be at the end, is there's other reasons besides features to get to new versions, and sometimes there are security upgrades. Like I believe the OpenSSL one was because of a security thing. So getting to new versions is important, not just so you get the new FileWave features. It's important so that you stay modern on these third-party pieces that we include. So then I had this slide that was just basically repeating a lot of things that we had talked about, but there are a lot of little things that all contribute to FileWave just being simpler to use, automating things where appropriate, and that's the general theme: is simpler and more clear. So then that's pretty much it for this one. I don't know, PN or Derek, do you have any?
I think Derek is off stage, so he's even not allowed to talk. I don't know.
I think
you added him. Yay.
Oh no, I didn't. I don't have him in the list, so you're right. So it's just me and you, PN.
But he will wave to say hello. No, I mean, we really hope that you will love all the efforts we've put on 16.3. And again, a big thank you for early access. The feedback is super valuable, which we've made our best to not break any early access customers. So things are still working. It was some of the sometimes not details, but it was not critical, but it helps us making FileWave a much better product. So again, thank you very much for that. And looking forward to showing you 16.4 and future versions.
Yeah, and we'll do this again when 16.4 is coming, just to make sure everybody's clear about what's in the new version and if there's any risks or just things to think about. Okay. So thank you, everybody.